At dawn on the 3rd of January 2026, the United States did something the world thought belonged to another era. It didn't bomb a country into submission. It didn't invade with divisions and banners. It removed a president quietly. Precisely within hours, a question exploded far beyond Caracas. If Washington can do this in Venezuela, what stops Beijing from trying the same play in Taiwan? On Chinese social media, the idea went viral. A single strike, a captured leader, a problem solved. It sounds clean. It sounds modern. And it sounds dangerously wrong. Because what looks like a surgical operation on the surface is underneath a product of unique power, unique conditions, and a collapsing state that no longer resembled a functioning system. Taiwan is none of those things. If you want to understand why this operation is being misread and why copying it could backfire catastrophically, you need to look past the spectacle and into the structure beneath it. Stay with me. Let's define the real problem first. The real question is not whether China wants to copy what the United States did in Venezuela. The real question is whether the same logic even applies. Operation Absolute Resolve was not just a military raid. It was the final move in a long process of systemic collapse. Venezuela's economy had imploded. Its institutions were hollow. Trust inside the regime had evaporated. By the time US forces moved, the state was already failing from within. Taiwan sits on the opposite end of that spectrum. It is not ruled by a single man. It is not held together by fear. It is a democracy built on redundancy, elections, courts, media, civil society, and a professional military that does not depend on one leader to function. This distinction matters more than missiles or commandos. Decapitation only works when removing the head collapses the body. In Taiwan's case, the body keeps moving. That is why asking, can China do the same, misses the deeper issue. The structure of the target determines the outcome. To understand that structure, we need to go back before Caracas, before Taiwan, to how power and decay intersect over time. That context changes everything. To see why Venezuela and Taiwan diverge so sharply, you have to look at history, not headlines. Venezuela's collapse did not begin with soldiers. It began with incentives. Years of mismanagement hollowed out the economy. Sanctions deepened, isolation, loyalty inside the regime became transactional, not institutional. Over time, the state stopped behaving like a system. Power concentrated upward, institutions decayed downward. By the end, removing one man disrupted the entire structure. Taiwan followed a different historical path. Its modern political system was built explicitly to avoid single-point failure. Authority is distributed, succession is codified. Legitimacy flows from process, not personality. This is the logic of resilient states. They absorb shocks rather than collapse under them. Economically, Taiwan is integrated into global supply chains, not cut off from them. Socially, it is bound by participation, not fear. Militarily, it plans for continuity, not improvisation. So, when analysts compare Caracas to Taipei, they are not comparing two capitals. They are comparing two cycles of history moving in opposite directions. And that difference becomes decisive the moment a crisis begins. The first real test came not on the battlefield, but in interpretation. In Taiwan, analysts split almost immediately into two camps. One side saw Venezuela as a warning. They argued the operation proved Washington is refocusing inward toward the Western Hemisphere while reallocating attention away from Asia. From this view, Caracas was not strength, but retrenchment. A signal that future crises in the Indo-Pacific might wait their turn. The other camp saw the opposite. They saw deterrence, not distraction. They argued that Venezuela was proof the United States still believes in overwhelming force, decisive action, and escalation dominance. Not theory, execution. Both sides were reacting to the same images. Both drew radically different conclusions. This is how strategic uncertainty works. Ambiguity itself becomes destabilizing. For Beijing, this debate matters because misreading intent is often more dangerous than misjudging capability. A false sense of American withdrawal invites risk-taking. A clear signal of resolve raises the cost of aggression. If you care about where this leads, this is the moment to pay attention, not when missiles fly, but when narratives harden. Because what comes next is not about perception. It's about mechanics, and those mechanics are far less forgiving. Here is where the illusion breaks. From the outside, Operation Absolute Resolve looks like speed and precision. From the inside, it was an orchestration problem of extraordinary complexity. Before a single operator moved, the United States achieved dominance across every domain. Space, cyber, air, sea, information. Intelligence did not just locate Maduro. It mapped his habits, his protectors, his communications, and the fractures inside his regime. Electronic warfare blinded response. Information operations shaped confusion. Only then did special forces enter the picture. This level of integration is not just about technology. It requires decentralized command, trust between services, and real-world experience under pressure. This is the hidden barrier for Beijing. The PLA has modern hardware. What it lacks is a long record of complex, politically sensitive joint operations that must succeed on the first attempt. History is unforgiving here. Even the United States, with decades of experience, has failed at missions like this. Iran, Mogadishu, Cuba. If a decapitation strike fails, it does not reset the game. It escalates it. And Taiwan is built to make failure likely, not accidental. Which brings us to the second crisis, one designed to absorb exactly this kind of shock. Taiwan has spent years preparing for the moment many assume would end the fight. Decapitation. Not as a theory, but as a scenario rehearsed again and again. Leadership protection is layered, not symbolic. Command authority is distributed, not centralized. Military police units are assigned to secure core institutions. Marine formations have been reoriented toward counter-decapitation missions. Amphibious reconnaissance forces monitor the approaches most often imagined in war games. And above all, continuity is planned. Taipei does not rely on improvisation in crisis. It operates under a dedicated framework designed for leadership, survival, and succession, ensuring that even if senior figures are removed, the system keeps functioning. This is where Beijing's problem compounds. A failed decapitation strike does not weaken Taiwan. It hardens it. Public outrage would surge. Political legitimacy would consolidate, not fracture. International sympathy would intensify overnight. Instead of collapse, China would trigger cohesion. That is why this second crisis is more dangerous than the first. Because it is not about whether China can strike. It is about whether the strike produces the opposite of its intended effect. And once that door closes, the conflict changes shape entirely. Now bring this down from strategy to something closer to you. Because if this ever happens, you are not watching history. You are inside it. You wake up to alerts on your phone, flights grounded, markets frozen, rumors racing faster than facts. And the question isn't abstract anymore. It's personal. Do you trust that your society holds together when fear hits? Do you trust institutions more than personalities? Do you trust each other? This is what Taiwan has been preparing its people for. Not heroics, not myths, but endurance. The knowledge that no single arrest, no single strike, no single headline decides a nation's fate. If you remove a dictator, a system can fall. If you attack a democracy, the system responds. That difference protects lives, jobs, families, normal mornings that don't make the news. This is why resilience matters more than spectacle, and why understanding it matters to you. If this perspective helps you see the world more clearly, pause for a moment. share it. Because clarity in moments like these is a form of defense. And what happens next goes far beyond any one island. The ripple of Venezuela's operation is global. Latin America is watching closely. Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia condemned it. Argentina, Bolivia, and Paraguay expressed cautious support. China is watching too. Its silence speaks volumes. Beijing's allies in Caracas are exposed, revealing the limits of its influence. Global perceptions are shifting not just in Latin America, but across Asia. Taiwanese analysts track every signal, the recalibration of US priorities in the Western Hemisphere, the willingness to act decisively, and the lessons drawn from weak states all influence how Taipei prepares. This is not a simple template for replication. It is a study in the interplay of power, legitimacy, and opportunity. Every strategic actor, Taiwan, China, the United States, and even smaller nations must read these lessons carefully, because the reverberations from Caracas echo across oceans, reminding us that local actions can carry global consequences. The bridge forward is clear. Understanding influence, not imitation, shapes the next moves. Looking ahead, 3 futures emerge, each shaped by choice, structure, and risk. Best case, China hesitates. Taiwan's resilience holds. US deterrence works without direct conflict. Regional stability endures. Lessons from Venezuela inform strategy, not aggression. Medium case, tensions rise. Limited strikes, cyber operations, or coercive measures unsettle the region. Taiwan absorbs shocks through counter-decapitation and civil cohesion. Global condemnation restrains escalation, but uncertainty lingers. Worst case, China attempts a bold decapitation. Taiwan resists. International support surges. Conflict escalates rapidly. Chaos on the island, sanctions, and regional instability dominate headlines. The lesson is philosophical as much as tactical. Power without context is fragile. Operations succeed not because of force alone, but because conditions align with strategy. What works in a hollowed-out state like Venezuela cannot be transferred blindly. Understanding these scenarios helps you see the system, not just the headlines, because in strategy, clarity is survival. And the next move depends on who reads it correctly. Now, let's close the circle. Operation Absolute Resolve taught a profound lesson. Decisive power is not the same as transferable power. The US removed Maduro because conditions, context, and capability aligned perfectly. China cannot simply replicate that. In Taiwan, the stakes, systems, and societies are entirely different. For Taiwan, the takeaway is clear. Strengthen resilience, maintain redundancy, and prepare for every contingency. Decapitation may remain a threat, but it is neither simple nor decisive. For the world, the lesson is broader. Power without understanding invites miscalculation. Spectacle can mislead. Context defines outcome. And for you watching these events unfold, the insight is personal. Clarity is power. Understanding systems, not just headlines, is what protects nations and individuals alike. So consider this your first step. Share it, reflect on it, and stay informed. Because the next time history moves, it may move faster than you expect. This is where we leave part 10 and where your understanding meets action.